Hello, welcome back. How's it going? How are you all doing tonight? So we are going to be jumping into some different videos tonight. We're going to do some breakdown before we get into that, of course. It's good to see you guys all back. We're here for all those that serve, all that have served, and all those that support. We are jumping in here. So we're going to get into our warning real quick. Our warning: historical content notice. The following program contains authentic, unedited footage from the World War II era. The material may include racial stereotypes, offensive depictions, and symbols of hate, including Nazi imagery, as well as wartime propaganda, which reflect the attitude and realities of the time. These films are presented in their original, produced without alteration or censorship for the purpose of historical record, education, and discussion. Mission 4938 does not endorse the views, language, or depictions shown. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. So we are going to get into it here. So the first thing, we're going to jump into the slideshow here. So we have a couple things to cover. So we're going to see a lot about war bonds and talking about war bonds and jump into that here with our war bond coverage. $185 billion raised, and that's in 1940s dollars. What we're actually looking at there, if you looked into American or to modern money, is 3.2 to 3.5 trillion dollars. That's a lot of money in bonds that are going up. So what this did was it was going through, and you're going to see a lot of this war bond talk. And we talk a lot about the battles overseas, but what people don't realize is the war was also being fought right here on the home front. With 85 million Americans bought war bonds, that percentage of Americans that bought war bonds was a little over 60% of America was buying them. And it wasn't rich investors, it was everyday Americans who were buying these bonds. $18.75 is what most of the bonds cost. That was a whole paycheck at the time. It'd be the equivalent of you going out and dropping $400 today. And these are people buying them over and over again. And this was also during the Depression. So it's a huge hit on what people were actually spending. And then what they were actually getting with those bonds. So the bonds, they bought everything. Everywhere you look, you saw posters, radio, movie theaters. Anywhere you were seeing these signs: buy war bonds, buy war bonds. Everything was pushing them. So you were Hollywood stars, cartoons. It was just everywhere. And they built ships, they funded planes, they kept factories running, and it kept the entire war machine running. And it would get everything up and moving. And the reality of that was, it was also fighting inflation, because the government, instead of going out and borrowing from other countries, which didn't have money either, were getting money from the American citizens to cover the entire war effort. We're going to look at the inflation going on here. So as you're seeing here, inflation was extremely high. You're looking at 1875 for the war bond, 2.9% interest, $25 value. But a lot of times interest was going way over what they were getting for it. So yes, it was supposed to be paying out to them, but the reality was it really wasn't covering the cost of it, but it was being patriotic. It was how they were fighting the war effort. And then military pay chart back then. So in 1939, you had a private making $21, which was more than the average American was making at the time. So getting into the war in 1939, or getting it before we went to war, you were getting paid fairly decent for being in the Depression. But by 1945, you're looking at private again, $50. That's $42. So you're seeing them bring in that money. They were getting money for being in combat, which was, I think, $10 a month. And there are some other things they could getting $71 a month. And then if you look at an officer, $203 a month. But by the end of the war, 1944, 1945, a civilian was actually making way more money than what your military members were making. So it's kind of this weird dichotomy that they jumped in before the war started. Those that had signed up and volunteered and went to war to help cover the cost of their family back home during the Depression. By the end of the Depression, were making less than the average worker was in the United States. So kind of keep that in mind as we're looking through these things. And again, there's going to be some stereotypes shown in these. We're not editing them. We want you to see what they were actually showing and what they were putting out. But we're going to jump into our first one, which is a few quick facts. And we're going to get into all of that now. Let me know if I need to raise or lower the volumes.
This morning, in the time you spent brushing your teeth, planes of the Air Transport Command were busy flying a distance of 5,000 miles. Right now, in the time you spend looking at this issue of the Screen magazine, your air transport planes are flying a distance equal to twice around the world. And between this minute and this same time tomorrow, they will have carried their cargoes 120 more times around the world.
So that's the Air Transport Command. And you got to think, at this point, seeing planes flying this much was still a pretty big novelty. Most people had never flown. Flight was still not necessarily in its infancy, but it was definitely not something that was regular or seen very often. So they're already flying this much, and it was because of the war that they actually kind of picked up those flight things. And again, this video was only shown to service members. This was not to be released to civilians. So this is all made for service members to see what's going on.
This was our Navy when we entered the war. 1,076 ships, combat and non-combat. Many of these ships have since been sunk. The Pacific, the Atlantic, the Mediterranean. Question: how many ships do we have today? Answer: 14 times as many as we had when we started, thanks to the men and women working in United States shipyards.
And so we're going to jump in through these facts fairly quickly. So you got to think, most of these ships started being built in 1939. We started rolling them off the lot. A carrier took 2 to 3 years to come out. A battleship took about that same length of time as well. But they were able to roll out destroyers and some of the smaller ships in 2 to 3 months. And what they were doing was something incredibly new. They were going through and building them in sections and then bringing them together and welding them together. So you may have 4 ship docks right next to each other building all the same part, and then they would bring in the next section and weld it together to finish those ships out. So, and then in comparison, if you look at today's Navy, we have 300 ships total. So 14,000 ships at the end of World War II and 300 today, which our ships are more efficient today than they were back then, but it's such a huge change in Navy policy.
Here's one for the books, about your ally, China. The pay of a private in the Chinese Army is the equivalent of 52 cents a month. He has been fighting the Japanese for 6½ years. In these 6½ years, the Chinese soldier has earned $40.56, and the respect of the entire civilized world.
So you think China had been fighting Japan for 6
In all
years.
US Army posts, one of the most serious problems is fire. Of all the fires that cause damage in U.S. Army posts, 17% are started by, guess what? Soldiers smoking in bed.
A very interesting figure. And that ain't no exaggeration!
So there we have the famous voice again of Mel Blanc coming in, who did so much work for the Army Signal Corps. You'll know him as Bugs Bunny. You'll know him as a bunch of other characters that he played. But again, 17% of all fires started by service members smoking in their beds. Today, you can't smoke anywhere near the barracks. They normally have a smoking pit way far off if they have one at all. But those are just a few quick facts. The Chinese had been fighting the Japanese for 6½ years at this point in 1944, and they continued fighting all the way through 45. And so it's just amazing little facts like that we're going to throw in there. This next one, we're going to do the content warning again, just because of the content we're going to be covering. The following program contains authentic, unedited footage from World War II era. The material may include racial stereotypes, offensive depictions, and symbols of hate, including Nazi imagery, as well as wartime propaganda, which reflects the attitude and realities of the time. The films are presented in an original produced without alterations or censorship for the purpose of historical record and education and discussion. We are going to get into Mr. Hook. So this film has some incredibly insensitive racial depictions. However, when you're watching it, think of why it was made. This film is trying to convince service members to not take their pay and put all of their pay into war bonds. Again, you're looking at the start of the war, 1939, 1940, 1941, when the war actually kicked off in 41, late 41, 42. Most of the service members were single, but by the end of the war, when this was made, most of them had families back home. So we're going to jump into Mr. Hook. Again, content warning, trigger warning ahead of it. It's got some racial depictions in there. But again, we're looking at this. This is only shown to service members for the complete idea of getting them to invest their money into war bonds. And again, officially presented by the United States Navy. They're the ones that made this. And again, the unmistakable voice of Mel Blanc coming in here doing the voices on this. Hold on, if you didn't catch that, that said Honorable Asbestos. What a wild thing. Even with all the racial stuff in here, what a wild thing to talk about Honorable Asbestos, which later has just caused massive amounts of disease and illnesses.
Hello, fellas. This is the sad sack. And believe me, after the war, I may be bringing my family to live here in Tokyo, in Japan. Oh, it's lovely. All they feed me is peaches and pile of mode. And I'm drinking nothing but the rum and Coca-Cola.
Thank you. And how are you, jive bugs? Before I slap on that first hot cider for you, just a few words about those war bonds they've been asking you to buy. Why do they want you to buy a North Pole and a South Pole? That's why. Help the war effort. Truly, they aren't thinking of you guys at all. Besides, what good will bonds do? I ask you, what good will bonds do?
What good will bonds do?
Furthermore,
What good will bonds do, she says. I'll show her what good will bonds do.
Oh boy, what corn.
Tokyo Roast? Greetings from Uncle Sam's Navy, whose intentions are really quite plain. They're sending you more of these presents, again and again and again. Sign here, please. Ooh, does your face fear of different oratory?
Yes, sirree, sailor. Today, your war bonds are fighting with you on all the battlefronts. But tomorrow, when the war is over, that shell will be returned to you.
Hey!
Oh, there you are, sailor. I never forget a face.
Oh, you.
You gotta be fixed up with a lot of things. First you want some civvies. Oop. humor and a real post-war gow job.
Hey, gee whiz.
Now, is there anything else you'll be wanting?
Yeah, but, I can take care of that myself. Oh, fishy.
So there we see several different types of propaganda. One, you're seeing how hard they're pushing the war bonds, completely relating to the only way we're going to continue to fight is if people are spending the money and buying those war bonds. You're also seeing some pretty outrageous depictions of Japanese people in that, but you're also seeing kind of the other side of the propaganda as well. During this time period, Tokyo Rose was actually a big figure across the war effort, was putting out anti-American propaganda. And you heard actually some of those lines were actually used by the real Tokyo Rose. Hey, why are they wanting you to buy war bonds anyway? It's not like they're doing anything. They've all forgotten about you. None of this is actually going to matter. You guys are going to lose in the end. And they were broadcasting it out, and they could pick it up on ships off the coasts of Japan and all throughout the Pacific Theater. It was a really big point of propaganda on the Japanese end. And then on the American end, you can see a really heavy-handed push. Oh, if you buy war bonds after the war is over, you're going to have all this money. You're going to have a car. You're going to have the girls on your arm. You're going to have brand new clothes. They were really pushing the significance of the war bonds, even if it wasn't actually generating you more money than what you were getting from inflation, kind of taking some of that away. So again, really pushing the war bonds there. We're going to jump into another one. This is our favorite Private Snafu over here talking about Payday. And he's going to be highlighting, again, this is another push. This is a push now by the Army to get you to buy war bonds, or what happens when you don't buy war bonds. Because that side, they showed what happens when you do buy them. He had all those war bonds stacked up. Everything was going to go great for him. Now we're going to see how the Army kind of tried to sell the war bonds. And they did it in a very different way. And again, you hear Mel Blanc in all of these. These are the animators. These are Tex Avery. These are Stan Lee. These are Dr. Seuss. There's so many people that are doing these animations. And there you got Technical Fairy First Class. If you've not caught any of our other Private Snafus, Technical Fairy First Class is always there trying to get Private Snafu to do the right thing, whether it's, in this case, invest in war bonds or to not send out letters that he shouldn't send out or all that kind of stuff. So we're kind of seeing this is supposed to be the Middle East. The person's supposed to be on a relaxation, liberty tour, and they're going to be pushing through that way on war bonds. Got to tempt you with the likeness of Smoke of Cleopatra there, trying to bring him in. So again, showing off that, hey, if you're spending your money frivolously, you're not going to have the car, you're not going to have the doghouse, that kind of thing. And we're going to keep seeing this same imagery. Again, they're going at it in a different way to get you to buy the war bonds here. So right there, again, we're seeing the buy war bonds or you're going to end up destitute when you get out. They're really pushing them really hard. And again, throughout these, we're seeing a couple other things. We're seeing propaganda from both sides. And again, propaganda on the Japanese side, we saw the Tokyo Rose, but we're also seeing they were doing the messages pretending to be a COT service member and how much better things were in Japan. And that was real propaganda of the time. But this, what we're watching, these buying war bonds, that's also propaganda. And this was completely aimed at our military. The other thing that we're going to go into the next one. The last one we're going to be looking at is inflation by Private Snafu. This is a very short one. It'll be the one we close out on here tonight. But they're going to try to talk about why you shouldn't spend as much money overseas. Because you saw right there in that Private Snafu, people picking up souvenirs, people picking up all these other things. And so they wanted to, again, find another way of talking about why you should invest your money instead of just going out there and buying stuff. So we'll jump into Private Snafu inflation.
When this guy was stationed in the United States, his pay didn't look like very much. But over here, it looks a lot bigger, especially to the people who live here and buy in this little store. Then you come along. You make a purchase. Your friends get the same idea. The stockpile gets smaller. The price gets bigger. About all there's left for the townspeople is the great big price. Multiply this scene a few thousand times, and you get an idea of what happens. Money. Money without buying power. Money shot to hell. If you throw less of that money around and salt some of that money away, it will not only help the people who live here, but it'll help you later on.
So right there, you kind of see, again, another tactic trying to get them save some money, put some money back, put some in war bonds, put stuff in different other savings, because it's helping control the inflation in the United States while this is going on. So through all of these, we got to see a little bit of America propaganda. And that's something you'll see if you join us on our Fallout streams hosted by Recon Sarge. You're going to see that propaganda escalated to the 1000th time, because that's kind of the reason we're doing this. Is Fallout 4 especially has a lot that has to do with veterans and mental health issues and how veterans see the outlook of the world, but it also shows that propaganda, what happens when you blow that propaganda up 1,000, 2,000 times from normal everyday life. But what you're looking at through all these, we're seeing the propaganda, we're seeing the push for the buy war bonds, and there's nothing wrong with people buying war bonds. It's what funded the American war effort in World War II. It allowed us to build all the ships and the aircraft and everything else that we had produced. But at the same time, it's helpful to watch that and kind of be able to look at everyday world as we currently are and see what propaganda that we're seeing today. What are they pushing out? What are you ingesting in that you may not realize is propaganda, and what is going out as propaganda to our military? So as we're looking through these, we have some more great ones coming up next Thursday at 9:30 Central Time as well. We're going to keep going through this World War II era with a lot of this information. But also check us out on Discord, check us out on Facebook, check us out on Instagram, Twitter. We're all over the place. You can find all this kind of stuff about us. Our whole goal is to continue putting out this education material and also make a great place for all those that serve, all those that have served, and all those that support. And we're going to keep breaking this stuff down little by little. We actually have a really great Clark Gable movie we're going to be talking about here soon too, that he filmed for World War II for the sole purpose of making some recruiting propaganda. If you're a fan of Clark Gable or Gone with the Wind, you'll be able to really pick out and enjoy that video as well. But again, look at what's going on in your world today and look at what's happened in the past. It's the easiest way to find out what propaganda there is and what's actually going on. If you have any other questions about the videos, please reach out. Give us a comment. We'd love to answer your questions. You can also reach out to us on our Facebook or just through direct messaging. Or you can get a hold of us at gaming, G-A-M-I-N-G, at VFW4938.org. We'd love to see you on our Fallout stream. We have a Fallout stream tomorrow. And we'd love to see you back here for another deep dive into World War II on Thursday. But until then, as always, stay strong, stay true, stay Frankie, and we will see you on the next one.